Thank you very much for coming. As we get set up here, I want to thank everyone for coming out today. There are some elected officials here that I'd like to acknowledge. Mayors from different parts of Massachusetts. Yvonne Spicer from Framingham, Dan Rivera from Lawrence, Nicole Chappelle from East Hampton, Donna Holliday from Newport, Joe Curtone from Somerville, and there might be some other mayors coming in a little bit. We have state senators, Senator Chandler, who's a sponsor of the bill. Thank you, Senator. Senator Brownsberger's here, I think, or he was here. He's somewhere. He's right there. Thank you, Will. And Representative Jay Livingstone is here as well. So I want to thank Representative Livingstone for being with us. I want to thank Rebecca Hart-Holder from NARAL, and I want to thank NARAL for being with us, all of the folks doing some incredible work here. Massachusetts has always led the fight for the rights and freedoms, especially when it comes to health care. And that's quite honestly why we're here today. This is a state that's led the way on health care reform. I'm proud to say I was a member of the legislature when we did that back in 2004. This is a state that has led the way on reproductive freedoms for women and women's health, and that's why we're all here today as well. Here in Massachusetts, we won't be intimidated about what's happening in other states, and where they're putting women, quite honestly, put women's health into danger, but also putting women into danger, and we're not going to stand for that here in Massachusetts. We won't be intimidated by the Trump administration. We won't be intimidated by wanting to roll back Roe versus Wade. We're going to continue to fight for all people's rights here in Massachusetts. As mayors, we have a responsibility to every single person that has the right and opportunity and freedoms to control their lives on the most basic level. That includes the ability to choose and what's best for their own bodies. And the reason why, quite honestly, we're here as mayors today is because we're on the ground every day. And we represent people throughout our cities collectively that come to us on all different issues. And we feel that it's important for us today to unite together, to stand here, to support the ROE Act. It's very important that we continue to move forward here. We're not going to let us go backwards. As Congress and other cities and other states and legislators around the country, this conversation is long past us as Americans. We should be moving forward, and it's actually giving more rights to people. We shouldn't be taking rights away from people. We shouldn't be taking rights away from women. We shouldn't be taking rights away from families. And that's why we're putting a stake in the ground here in Massachusetts. That's why we as mayors today are going to stand shoulder to shoulder with our colleagues in the Senate and the House and demand that action happens, that this bill be taken up, that this bill goes to the governor's desk so that we can continue to add protections here in Massachusetts. So I want to thank all of you for being here today. And now I have the great honor of introducing the mayor, my dear friend, the mayor of Framingham, Yvonne Spicer.
This is a human right. Women's right to control their own bodies is their right with the guidance of their doctors. This is not something that needs to be legislated. And we, as a state, Massachusetts has always stood strong about being able to protect its residents. And women are an important part of that. Women of color who have long lost the opportunities to be able to have affordable, quality health care. And these are the women that will probably suffer if this does not move forward. It is so critically important that each and every one of us stand up for all women. And I am proud of my brothers behind me that see the importance, because each and every one of them, their voice is amplified right along with mine, and making sure that each and every one of us has a stake in the ground on this. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce my friend, Mayor of Lawrence, Dan Rivera.
So on top of us talking about this in this national climate, where everything is how can we hate more, how can we get more divisive with each other, this is an important piece of legislation. The question of whether or not to have an abortion really is a personal question that the men should have very little to do with. This is a thing that is intricate in a woman's life and a woman's decision, and it's already something that's serious and thoughtful. And so for the legislature to have language, and language does matter, even if it's little small pieces of language that you have to change. We have to change them to make it a more easy process for them to go through. You know, and when you're talking about this, you're talking about women of color, poor women. This is difficult for them because people with means get to these things and they have it with very, very little problem in their life. They have healthcare, more healthcare than they could probably ever need. So for a person who represents many young women of color, many poor women in my community, that any impediment to safe and legal abortion is really a risk to health in my whole community. I hope you understand this is not just us waving a flag on something that's already clear and easy here in Massachusetts. When somebody has to leave Massachusetts to get health care, something's wrong with that piece of health care. And those people don't have the means even to make it to work most days, never mind to get someplace to go across a border to do this. So it's an imperative that men like me, leaders like us, stand up and say to everyone, hey, this isn't as good and clear as you think it is. This isn't as safe as you think it is. And with that person in the White House today, nothing is safe. And we got to make sure that we draw the lines. And I was in the service, and when you want to make sure you protect your six, you get bunkers up. So you got to fill these sandbags, and these sandbags inside this legislation that reinforces, that protects us in every angle. And that's why I stand here in support. As my friend, and I get to introduce a really close friend of mine, Nicole LaChapelle. Mayor LaChapelle.
Good morning. I feel like many of my constituents in Western Mass. I get in the car and I'm driving 90 miles to the State House to speak to you about an issue and an act that really shouldn't be a conversation anymore. My constituents drive over 90 miles to seek reproductive health care. The ROE Act is not just about abortion, it is about quality health care and for very well-informed decisions that women deserve and must make on their own with proper medical direction and advice. The clinics that provide this advice and services are important to a woman's emotional, economic, and basic dignity and rights. This is not just about one healthcare choice. This is about a choice that a woman deserves that will affect the rest of her life if denied. I am pretty sure, in fact, very sure, that there is not a man here that drives 100 miles to have treatment for his prostate. I have constituents in East Hampton who are driving to Connecticut, upstate New York, to get basic information and a choice that only they deserve to make. I thank the mayors behind me for standing with me and other mayors and electeds on the ROE Act, and I thank the work of my colleagues on Beacon Hill for putting it forward. And now I am going to bring to the mic Mayor of Somerville, Joe Curtatone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As has been stated, we're all well aware that the Trump administration has been trying to chip away and turn back the clock on women's reproductive rights and health. The ROE Act, as you know, would update Massachusetts laws to better serve the reality that we live in now and help decrease the stigma around abortion. It would expand access to abortion and create really a safety net to provide both abortion and pregnancy-related care to those not covered by Mass Health. And perhaps most importantly that we need to keep in mind is that it would make reproductive freedom state law here in Massachusetts. This is an opportunity for us to actually act like the most progressive state in the United States. The decision if and when to become a parent is not one that government should be making. What the government can do is make sure that our residents get scientifically accurate information about their reproductive health, as well as safe, affordable health care for whatever decision they make. And we must collectively together keep fighting for abortion rights at the national level, but we cannot and should not ignore the opportunity right here, right now, to take a stand in Massachusetts and support the ROE Act. I want to thank Mass Narelle, Mayor Walsh, and all my colleague mayors and partners in the legislature for this fight. At this time, we'll be taking questions. Thank you.
Any questions on topic?
Mayor,
Yes.
so what do you as mayors plan to do from here out to push bills along and get it passed?
Well, I think we tend on advocating with the legislature, with the legislators in our different cities and towns. I think that's one thing, and working with Senator Chandler and other senators, the co-sponsor Jay Livingstone, to work with leadership as well to see if we can get this piece of legislation moved forward. I think that's key here. and it's about advocacy, and it's about all of us advocating and telling the stories of our constituents in our cities and towns across Massachusetts. And there are other mayors that couldn't be with us today that support this act as well, that couldn't be with us today. So collectively, we're going to work together.
In your opinion, why is it stalling?
I don't know if it's stalling or if it's just a legislative process. I mean, I spent 16 years here in the legislature, and you know, sometimes the budget, education funding bill, transportation issues, transportation needs, and it's not necessarily. I don't know if it's a stalling piece. Can't answer that. I'm not in the meetings, but I know that there's still plenty of time to pass something in this legislative cycle. We have till the end of July for formal sessions, and then we have informal after that. And I do think the important piece here is to get the bill done prior to July 31st, because once it's informal, it's a whole different situation, I think, when it comes to legislation. So I don't necessarily think it was stalling, but I think we're here today to express a sense of urgency and why we want to see this move forward. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.